Now, when it comes to the subject of anatomy, there's so much information out there that to the beginner can be overwhelming. With the different construction methods of the head and the figure, can end up getting frustrated and stuck without a proper guide and a structured practice plan. Because I've seen lots of videos and people in the art community saying just keep practicing, keep drawing. Well, to get the most out of your practice session, you need to have a goal. So I released an introductory video on this subject for the beginners and those frustrated out there on how to draw the human figure as fast as possible. So if you haven't watched it, you can check that out over here. Now this is a follow-up, so I'm going to show you how to effectively practice the anatomy through all the different drawing phases, from your simple basic shapes like the stick drawing all the way to adding muscles and all the necessary details, and also how to remember them, because drawing is all about copying and taking information from your surroundings and from your reference. So the more you draw and the more you copy a particular subject, it can be an animal, people, anything at all, the more information you store about that particular subject. That's why it's very, very important to have a structured practice plan. So this video is going to be divided into two sections: the sketches and the structure, and the best practices for each of them. Now before we begin, I want to say a very big thank you to those who subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much for your support, and more tips and more tutorials dropping very soon. And so let's begin. Now, on your art journey, no matter what stage you are at, fundamentals is very, very important. That is why I explained in my previous video about the element of design. Not to bore you with all that boring stuff, but it's important for this video because in the element of design, we start with the line. The lines come together to form a shape, and an addition and subtraction of shapes is basically a form, and that's what we are trying to do: create the human form. For those starting out, you start by creating these spheres, getting used to the motion to avoid scratchy lines in your spheres and your actual lines. And then once you're past that stage, you can progress to making them three-dimensional. That is the cuboid, the cylinder, the cone, the pyramid, and also try combining them together, because that is what I explained before about the form. It's just an addition and subtraction of these shapes, and that's what the human form is, adding all these shapes together. So getting used to them so you can see them around you in your reference and in nature. Then once you're comfortable, you can progress to drawing them in perspective forms, because when you're drawing the human figure, they will mostly be in these dynamic positions where there'll be a lot of foreshortening and perspective being applied. So getting used to these shapes when they converge, where they expand, because when objects are close to the camera, they appear bigger, and when they are far away, they tend to converge and become smaller. Getting used to that rule with these three-dimensional shapes will help you when it comes to drawing the actual human form. Now, what I spoke about in my previous video about the three divisions of the human form represented in spheres, you can start combining them together. So the head, the thorax, and the pelvis, you can only focus on that as an exercise. I'm sure you're familiar with this kind of drawing on Pinterest. You've seen it all over. Now, this is something that is not new. People in animation do this style of practice whenever they are practicing the principles of animation. So you can use it because the larger portion of the human form is the thorax region. So this is the part where most of the ideas will be communicated. When it comes to a person twisted, whatever kind of motion will be communicated within this part of the body. So you can practice only that. Just add the three spheres together and just draw them in different positions. Just don't focus on the hand, the legs, the hands. Just forget about that and just combine these three spheres together in different positions, as you can see. Now, some of you may have learned on YouTube some other construction methods using the cubes. You can use any shape you like. As I said, you can start with the cube, the ovoid, anything you want. Now, if you are familiar with the cube, you can also use, it also applies here. People use this, but I'm familiar with the sphere because that's how I learned it, and it feels a little bit organic to me. Now, that may not work for you. It's all subjective. So you can use the same principle to any object you want. It can be a sphere, as you can see how I'm just applying these shapes also in perspective. So you can also practice these, the combination of these shapes, practice them in perspective. So references will always be your best friend. You can get them from Pinterest, from social media, anywhere, and just try and draw them in just these three shapes: no hands, legs, and just try them in perspective forms, foreshortening, dynamic poses, and get the idea, because anyone who sees this will know. Just without any hands or legs, will just tell what direction the person is facing. right, or what camera angle you're drawing from. So you can also apply these within your practice sessions as well. Now once you're comfortable, you can now start introducing the lines as the legs, the hands, and the other parts of the body, as I showed in the previous video, just using lines. So I spoke about these stick drawing. Basically, you can start practicing them by tracing them on images, and once you're comfortable, you can just grab any image. As you can see here, these are drawings I did looking on references from Pinterest. Once you become used to it, it will become really easy to add the flesh, because it's just a framework, it's just a guide. So this is a very helpful exercise to help, because this is an old technique, but I saw it when I was in high school, and I just was practicing it day in and day out. I was just doing these stick figures, and it helped me a lot now, right? You can do it, doesn't matter if you're experienced or you are a beginner. So I just use basically the stick drawing and as a framework, just a guide. Don't focus too much on it, just a guide. Now after I'm done, it's now easy to just flesh them out, because I now have a framework to work with. So I got a comment asking how to flesh out these lines. Well, this is very self-explanatory. I can't teach that, because the lines basically telling you what to do. So just follow the lines, the directions, to guide you to flesh out these characters. So do I need to learn the anatomy, like the muscles, if I have the reference with me? Well, the answer is no, and also it depends. Well, it depends on what you want to do, your goals. If you are somebody who wants to become, for example, a 3D artist, a sculptor, well, yes, you need to learn the anatomy, the muscles. If you want to become a 3D artist, sculpting for 3D CGI, yes, you need it. If you want to be a comic book artist, yes. But for somebody who just want to learn to draw the human figure, just out of hobby, no, you don't need it. Because the benefit of learning the anatomy is being able to draw from imagination. Because for you to be able to draw from imagination, you need to understand your subject, and also you're able to draw realistic and accurate forms with, and also accurate proportions as well. Also, when it comes to the muscles, you don't need to learn each individual ones, because at the end of the day, there are only a few muscles that will pop out on the skin. Just as on the face, the bones pop out and we see it. When you are learning the muscles, it's all about memorizing it, just copying them, not studying each individual muscles like a medical student would. You just need to learn the essential muscles that actually pop out on the skin. Right, when you see these characters, like for example Hulk, and you see there only is a few muscles that actually pop out. So without wasting the time, let's start. Now if you have learned to draw the stick figure, you've basically learned to draw the skeleton. It's just in a very simple and very basic form. When it comes to studying the anatomy, as I said in my previous video, the roadmap is to learn to draw the whole form and break them down into sections and study them. Because people tend to accomplish goals when it's broken down into simple tasks. So if you have a whole human form, instead of studying the whole muscles and every part of the body, it's more advisable to break them down into simple tasks, like break the head down, the arms, the legs. Just take these parts of the body separately and study the muscles and just memorize them. So the torso, we're going to start with the torso because that's a larger portion of the body, and if you stick around to the end, I'm going to explain how I approach the head, because with the head it tends to deal with more with the skeleton, the framework, and rather than muscles. So stick around for that. Now in the torso, we are going to apply the same practices as we did with the sketches, the stick drawing. So taking your subject, breaking them down, and then repeat. Memorizing comes from constant repetition. You can see in the gesture phase I showed starting with the basic shape and then start to flesh them out with what you see in the reference. Now the same thing applies here. Take a reference, break it down into simple shapes, and then just start to add the muscles from what you see. Now repeat this constantly, and you start to memorize where the chest level is, where the rib cage is, the muscles that are in the abs, the rib cage area, the side, and practice them from the side view, the back view, the front view, and from different angles. Now the reason why I recommend using the reference, because you get to understand which muscles tend to show out, right? So you focus more on those muscles, because not all of them show, right? You may see in the comic book drawings so many of them. Now those are exaggerated. Now when you are studying the anatomy, you want to draw more realistically. Now after you've copied from your reference and gotten an idea of the muscles that show up a lot, the positions and everything, repeat it a few times to memorize it. Now after you're done memorizing the muscles from the front view, the side view, the back view, you can go onto Pinterest, grab any reference of any character. It can be a ripped person or a skinny person, and just start to trace these muscles on the character instead of having to draw the whole character from scratch. Now after you're familiar with this process, you can now follow the whole procedure as I showed earlier in the video. Break down the forms into shapes with your stick figure, create a character, then apply these muscles that you have memorized onto that character. Now the legs and the feet, so the same practice applies here, breaking it down into shapes. Your stick figure, basically flesh it out, and after that you just use the reference what you are seeing and just apply the muscles. You could see from all these ripped guys what pops out, just apply that. Or you can take a real drawing or image of like muscles and just study these muscles if you want to, and just start to apply them onto the character from different sides, from the side view, from the front view, from the back view. And also the same thing applies for the feet. Now the feet is not really about muscles, because that doesn't show. It's all about the bone. So if you can do the stick figure, which is literally the bone, you can draw the feet, right? So just use the basic shapes as I showed in the previous video. Apply the same thing also for the feet. Now when you are done, just grab references from different platforms and just start to trace what you have learned by copying, and just draw them onto this reference. Right, if you're using Photoshop, you just lower the opacity and just start to trace them on it, just to memorize. Just repeat this a couple of times and you just memorize the positions. It will just stick in your mind. So the arms and the hands, so at this point you should be familiar already, because the whole process is the same. Just taking your reference, breaking it down into shapes, fleshing it out, and just copy what you see from the reference. So it could be a real life image of muscles, or be a sculpted image, or just a real person ripped on the arms and everything, and just copy those muscles that pop out on the skin. Now the head, this is a subject of interest, the part of the body that everybody wants to draw all the time. And so it doesn't matter which method you choose, whether the Loomis, the Riley method, or the Asaro method, all of them are meant to help you to draw the head and also understand the right facial proportions. Now that's a subject I like to talk about in a different video, on how to use these facial proportions to be able to draw exactly from the reference. Now all these methods are to help you understand the head and to draw it well, but each of them has their strengths. Now the Loomis method is to help you to understand the head, how to draw a basic head, and also to draw it in different directions from different angles. And it's very beginner friendly. That's why a lot of people tend to gravitate towards the Loomis method a lot. Now the Riley method is a method I'm not really familiar with. I know of it, but I haven't studied it. But some of the facial proportions, I actually look into it and I also apply. So the Riley method, from what I understand and what I know, it deals a lot with flow and rhythm. Now the Asaro method is not necessarily to teach you how to draw the head, but rather to understand the planes of the face, how light and darkness hit the face. Now when it comes to drawing the head, I'm sure you've got recommendations from people saying draw the skull, learn to draw the skull. Yes, it's very important that you learn to draw the skull, but you don't have to spend all your time drawing the skull, because you'll be wasting a lot of time, because at the end of the day you'll not be drawing the skull. It's just meant to understand the planes of the face, the indents and the elevations on the face. That's all. That's why you need to learn to draw the skull, unless you are an artist who focus on drawing the skull. So when it comes to learning to draw the head using the Loomis method, there are lots of tutorials out there you could follow, but in this tutorial I'm going to show you how I approach drawing the head. So when I draw using the Loomis method, I only use it to show me the direction from different angles, and also to memorize certain facial proportions that will help me to be able to draw exactly as the reference. And also I use the Loomis method in combination with the Asaro method, the planes of the face, memorizing these planes so you'll be able to know and understand which parts of the face are more affected by the light and the darkness. You know, the Loomis method starts with drawing a sphere, then a horizontal and a vertical line across the sphere to represent the different facial proportions, that like the eyebrow, the nose line, the mouth, the chin, and the hairline. Now an exercise for that would be to grab a reference, draw a sphere around the head of the reference, and use the vertical and horizontal lines to represent the direction of the head. That's how I approach it, and I use this as a practice to be able to understand the directions of the head, how when the head is levitated, when the head is sideways, how it will look, and how to draw them very well. Now there are lots of these references you can find on Pinterest of the head that you could start to draw the sphere and the lines across to be able to tell the direction. By doing so, you are memorizing the head in perspective form. Now once you're done, just like our previous exercises from earlier in the video, you could just look on the reference and just start drawing the sphere and the lines and just meeting them, draw them from different angles. And once you do that, you could just be anywhere in the house watching a movie and just be drawing people heads in different angles from different camera points. Once you are done tracing using the spheres and the lines over the face to understand the direction, the perspective, you could do just as we did earlier in the video, the same practices. You could just look on the images and just start drawing the sphere, the lines. Use as a practice every day. I mean, there are lots of exercises online, like 100 heads in a couple of days. You could try that, not focusing on the features of the face, but just drawing these. You can do it as a challenge, just drawing these spheres and the lines, different angles, in perspective form, foreshortening, whatever. You just look on the reference and just do that, and you'll be able to understand that to a point. You just be sitting and just be doing these things on the fly. To this day, I do this all the time. It doesn't matter whether you are new or you are an experienced artist. It will help you to understand a lot more about the face. Now, this is a subject I'd like to talk about in a separate video on the head, where I'll teach you how I approach using the Loomis method and the Asaro method to draw exactly as the reference. So if that's something you're very interested in, leave a comment down below and let me know. Now that's all for today. I hope this video is very helpful to you in giving you like a roadmap on your figure drawing journey, from the stick drawing all the way up to the muscles, and dividing the muscles and the parts of the body from the head all the way up to the feet, and also giving you a clear goal to aspire to. And so comment down below, let me know what I didn't talk about, what you actually suggest, your recommendations, videos that you like me to do. And so yeah, that's all for today. Thank you, and to thank you all for subscribing to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.